This administration's agenda to create more government, more spending, more taxes, and more debt has created an inequality crisis of opportunity in our country. Those policies have been disproportionately hurtful to the poorest among us for the past 5 years.
Missouri Senator Roy Blunt laying out the GOP response to President Obama's State of the Union address even before it's delivered. And it's time now for our Sunday group. Brit Hume, Fox News senior political analyst. Julie Pace, who covers the White House for the Associated Press. Syndicated columnist George Will, and former Democratic Senator Evan Bayh. Well, I went back this week and read President Obama's State of the Union speech from last year, and a couple of points. First of all, it sounded almost identical to what we hear is going to be in the speech this year. And then secondly, as I discussed with Dan Pfeiffer, almost none of the items, the agenda items the president proposed, got through. So the question is, Britt, what does the president hope to accomplish Tuesday night?
I've covered well in excess of 30 of these State of the Union addresses. I can remember very little.
Coates was an interesting one, I thought.
Exactly. Yes. I can remember very little about any of them. I mean, there are a few moments. Some of them had nothing to do with the speech itself, but one of them was an outburst from the audience. One of them was a mouthed comment from Samuel Alito. Another one was a guest in the gallery that Ronald Reagan had that started this whole guest in the gallery business. Now it's reached the point where Louis Gohmert is going to have his own guesses this time. I don't expect this one to be particularly memorable. His agenda has basically been frozen since the Republicans took control of Congress in 2010. There's not a lot he can do. That's why you hear him talking about pens and telephones, because he can't get anything through Congress. So I expect it to be a minimal consequence, and perhaps similar to what he's gone for in the past, because he hasn't gotten any of that.
And by the way, Fox News will be covering the president's speech. That's not a very good preview of the speech. It's going to be exciting, and we're going to want to see it and the Republican response. Julie, how much of an agenda does the president really think that he can get through either Congress or through Dan Pfeiffer's now talk about doing it through executive actions?
I think the White House is pretty realistic that when it comes to their agenda with Congress, it's going to be very limited. They may have a chance on immigration reform. You're starting to see some pieces move on the Republican side there. If anything big gets done this year on the Hill, it's going to be immigration. They'll make a run at minimum wage. That's something that he announced last year in the State of the Union that went nowhere. So then you have to look at executive actions. And as I heard you say in the interview with Dan, the problem with executive actions is that they're inherently limited. So they can come out every week and say, we're signing an executive order on this, or we're convening college presidents or business leaders to take action on job training or the long-term unemployed. And that's a way to show momentum, but the actual result is going to be far smaller than what you could do on Capitol Hill.
So, George, how much of this exercise on Tuesday night is just about the president trying to change the subject and change the American people's attention from Obamacare and all the problems with that to the subject that worked so well for him in 2012, which is the middle class and supporting building these ladders of opportunity?
Yes, well, it's a lot of changing the subject, but what kind of a ladder is he going to build? Now, in baseball, you play what's called small ball, stealing bases, bunting, when you can't do anything else. This is the miniaturization of the president's agenda. A 23rd increase in the minimum wage since 1938. It may be a good thing, a bad thing, but it's of marginal importance to the economy and of no importance to the middle class. Universal preschool, which, as you say, he endorsed last year. We've had almost 50 years of experience with Head Start. And the government's own studies show that the benefits from universal preschool are A, small, and B, evanescent. So he'll fall back on, as you say, these executive orders. They're not just limited, they are often, as the Supreme Court's going to say several times this spring, unconstitutional. So the shrinkage of the Obama presidency will be on display, I think, Tuesday night.
One area of possible compromise, it was very interesting, there were leaks all over the papers this weekend, is that the Republicans want to do something serious about immigration reform. It won't be comprehensive, it'll be piecemeal, but the idea is that there would be a path to legalization for the 11 million here illegally, not necessarily a path to citizenship except for the so-called dreamers, people that were brought here as children. First of all, why do you think the Republicans clearly are putting this out there, and what do you think of the prospects that you'll get a deal?
Two things, Chris. The Republicans are putting it out there because they did very poorly among Hispanic voters in the last election, and I think they realize if they're going to gain a majority in the Senate and regain the presidency eventually, they've got to get this issue off their back. So I think they will move forward in the House with a somewhat smaller package, and then that will put the ball in the White House's court. The advocates for reform and change are going to be very unyielding, and so the pressure is really going to be on the White House. Do they compromise and really get something done, which I think would be in their best interest and the country's best interest, or do you save this issue and use it as a political stick in the midterm elections, which I think many of their allies on the Democratic side in Congress would favor? What are the odds? Well, you know, in this Congress, betting on anything getting done, you know, less than 50-50. But I think, as both you and other panelists have noted, if anything's going to get done, it would be this. The real action will be in the executive order category. And more than anything else, Chris, in your 6th year, it's not about what you say, it's about what you do. And so executive action and framing the election, probably in populist terms, to try and keep the Senate, because if the Democrats lose the Senate, it will be a very long final 2 years for the president.
Let's talk about the election, because, Britt, the Republicans won a sweeping victory in 2010 talking about Obamacare and government overreach. The president won re-election in 2012 talking about this populist, middle-class champion of these ladders of opportunity. If those are the competing narratives in 2014, Obamacare on the one hand, championing the middle class on the other, which is the stronger argument?
Oh, well, Obamacare is such a problem for so many people, and negative emotions tend to outweigh positive emotions in voting patterns. So when you have a large segment of the population that has either been damaged by Obamacare or fears it will be, and that is hanging around the neck of nearly every Democrat running, particularly some of the vulnerable senators who are running for re-election, it creates a tremendous gravity that I think will be hard to overcome, plus the historical gravity of a president's party in that president's 6th year. So I think that the weight on this, all the Republicans really are running downhill, the Democrats running uphill.
Briefly, Julie, though, you can see the president teeing up minimum wage, unemployment benefits, hard-hearted Republicans. Do they think that can work for them and be a counter to Obamacare?
I think one of the interesting things about this inequality, ladders of opportunity argument is actually you have a lot of Republicans that are talking about that too. The policy prescriptions for addressing the issue are different, but Republicans aren't running away from this. Minimum wage, there's a lot of people on both sides of the aisle that think that there is a chance that Republicans might jump on minimum wage. It is something that some business leaders have said might not be a problem for them. But again, I think you will see both sides talking about this. It's just how they seem to want to address the problem that will be different.
All right, we have to take a break here, but when we come back, 2 years ahead of the first primaries for 2016, growing signs Hillary Clinton will run again. Our Sunday panel handicaps her chances and reviews. Check it out, this magazine cover, which places Clinton at the center of the universe. You won't want to miss it.